You know,
I'm not saying a word. You just go right ahead.
oh Lord. Good morning and welcome to WKNI TV 25. We got the Honorable Mike Jones Jr. Welcome to WKNI TV once again, sir.
Good morning.
We're always proud to have you. I mean, even you guys are in like battle fatigues like over there. What's going on? My goodness, I'm hearing blood's flowing down the aisles.
I'll say this: when I come home, I look forward to coming home these days.
Yeah, the honeymoon's over.
I'd say so. You can ask most people who see me. When I come in, I'm exhausted. It's long hours, and you have to keep your mind working pretty steady lately.
Wow, lots of stuff going on. Well, first, the national level has been getting all the attention. And, because the Democrats and the Republicans and then the president, there's like three different parties now. Okay, you got the president of the United States, one party, okay, and then you got the Democrats and the Republicans. And hello, when did it stop becoming about us? Mm-hmm. The citizens of the United States. When, I'll tell you, and I'm not pushing for you to run for Congress or Senate.
That's good.
I will, though, if after this comment, you're going to get it. When they left 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, whenever it was, when they did not have anything resolved with sequester, and they went home and said, son, I say fire them all this next election. Get them all out of there. Put Mike Jones in there. Let him be our senator or our congressperson.
Some messes, I'm not sure you can clean all of them up. Some of them are that bad.
Well, president then. How's that? President Mike Jones Jr.
I have no desire whatsoever.
We need somebody up there that's competent is what we're saying here.
Well, I appreciate it, but I'm in a job that I truly love, and I love representing people. I love knowing the people I represent. That means a lot to me.
Well, we will make sure you get out to everybody in the country. I'll make bids with CNN and all them, and everybody out there will love you because you are a lovable person, likable person. I've got to be careful. I'm not on the president thing with the. Never mind, but yeah. Anyway, conservatism has a new meaning nowadays.
It seems to be fluctuating some. I agree.
Wow, what happened?
I don't know. Lately, I do watch the national news, but the state news and state issues have pretty much consumed me lately.
Well, the national, that's the reason I'm talking about the national, certainly infects the state level.
It does. It does on some levels. For instance, the Obamacare issue and how it affects our Medicaid and the decisions we're making on that, that's a direct effect. And other issues, the sequestration is affecting issues at home for multiple reasons. One is funding that comes through us, through ADEC and other sources, and also the military bases. That's the one thing that we're all very concerned about.
Well, our livelihood is just right on the verge of just days of being taken away, literally. I mean, I don't want to even guess what April, 1st will look like if we don't get these people in Washington, D.C. to start doing something. And I'm not one of these what do they call them, the end of the world type people or whatever. I mean, yeah, we're going to protect ourselves if anything happened, but I'm not saying doomsday is around the corner because of sequester. But if we go into sequester, let me ask you this: if we do go into sequester, all right, on a state level, how bad will that be?
Well, and it's hard for me to predict that, and to some degree we're in it.
Right.
And it's and all these things that you hear about, whether it be national or state, funding doesn't just drop off like a cliff. It starts leaking off and gradually coming off. And that's why a lot of this politics that you see on the news media, the major media outlets, where it's doomsday is going to happen on this day, that's politics. That's where these national leaders are trying to create fear among everybody, including us. Well, they think that'll sell the politics of making things happen in D.C. And to me, that's typical, and it's not very. I'm trying to think of the right word, being a little political correct.
It's not ethical.
Well, it's definitely not being sincere with the people that they represent. It's not acting in good faith because these things are not, they don't happen on a particular day. It happens over a period of time. But instilling fear in people has become the politics of the present and the politics of the future. And I strongly disagree. You know my stance on that. I don't believe in that kind of thing. I think it's acting in bad faith to the people we represent, and I don't agree with it at all.
Well, I know there's several things that are going on in the state right now that are being directly as a result of this sequester. What it hurts is new business, big time.
Well, it does. At the same time, oddly enough, if you look at the market's been climbing, and
I don't believe in that market because and I'll tell you why, Mark.
Mike,
Mark,
my partner.
that's right. He's Catholic. You're Protestant, right? So okay, I'm sorry. I'll get it right. It's been a long weekend, but I'm sorry, Mike. Your mom's probably coming off that couch again, isn't she?
No, she's fine.
Well, anyway, where was I going? Let's see. The problem with all that happening, Mike, is that no matter what we do or say here, people are still getting to the point where they don't want to get involved in spending dollars, okay? And I've seen it happen here now recently several times, even in the military. There's been plans for the military to do certain things, and now they're holding off because they don't have the budget.
Well, one example that I can bring to bear that's fairly recent is Dothan was about to announce a new plant that would have 500 employees. And my friend and colleague in the House is Paul Lee, Representative Paul Lee. And he'd already been telling me about it, and he'd been looking forward to the announcement, and Representative Donnie Chastain and some others are going to be present for it. And I think it was the day before, literally the day before, maybe 2 days before, it was called off, at least temporarily, and it was directly related to sequestration. So, that has played a role, and that is an example of an industry that held up just to see how this is going to play out. We have passed some legislation on the state level to try to further entice that type of industry, that aircraft type industry, to keep coming to the state. And and we're seeing Airbus now commit. There was some media in Europe that confirmed the Airbus is locked into a sizable contract for some production. So we do expect that will go on. And they're looking at a $600 million investment in just the creation of the plant. Which that's an enormous investment in this state, and so we're looking forward to that.
Well, I don't know if you know it or not, but the gentleman that started the helicopter industry here in Andalusia years ago, I believe it was Vector at the time. Or,
right.
No, it wasn't Vector.
It was a different name at that time.
Right, I can't remember. But he started another helicopter company in Ozark, and
right.
he just lost his contract and laid off everybody but 4 people.
I didn't know about that. I did know that he had pulled out and moved to and started a new operation over in that area. And I really didn't know the specifics on it. I was contacted maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago and asked about it. I didn't know much about it at the time. I'd since it confirmed that he had pulled some business or tried to start a business over in that area. But it has not impacted Vector. Vector is still doing very well.
But I'm saying they could very well be affected as well over at Vector.
Well, I mean,
it's government contract.
Obviously, if you're dependent upon a government contract, then there's worry and concern. Fortunately, some of these industries have diversified, so they're doing things that are not all government contracts, and that's good. Now, some of these government contracts are funded, and so they don't have to worry about some of those particular issues. But you're right, the ones that are these future contracts, the ones that were committed but not funded yet, those are the ones that would cause any industry concern.
DRS, okay, local, good business, good quality company, came to our community, and people are now getting a little, well, people were screaming and hollering in the beginning, but they had no clue what they were talking about. They had no crystal ball to sit there and say, we're going to have sequester, go on in March and in April and all this stuff. But it's happening. I'm sure we haven't seen no C-130s dumping in over there, any big aircraft, and I'm sure it has a lot to do with the current program because they're not funded. Mm-hmm. They were going after contracts.
And that's accurate, and I'm not as familiar with the details. I'm familiar with the general like you are. They had to have that site location. They had to have that commitment to be able to make the contract proposals, and without that ability, they could not even get in the game. And the contracts that they're going after, they're the large contracts.
Big guys.
Right, they're the big guys. These are the multi-$100-million contracts, some of them larger. And so, this is big time. And if you ever even get one of those contracts, that's an enormous investment.
Well, at least they're still out there, and they're still plugging away, and hopefully this federal government will get their head together and make things a little bit more accessible to the state level. It's insane, Mike. I mean, it's totally insane. Where our government has gone to play the media instead of doing their job.
Well, and I can say that does appear to be the case on the national level. It's almost gotten comical sometimes just to see some of the things that are playing out. I try to not criticize other leaders sometimes because you never know all the facts. And I've learned since I've been in this office that there are things that I become aware of that is not general knowledge, because of economic development, because of other reasons, you have to keep your cards close. And that's decisions you have to make about how you handle those issues with the public. I would agree with this. I think some of those issues have been handled poorly.
Yeah, my son's over there putting signs up in the Skype. I'm glad you didn't see that. But behave yourself, son. Well, I do want to say this, and we'll get back onto state stuff and,
right.
and onto your particular job and interest. But Martha Roby has surely become. Now, I'll be honest with you, I was not in her field, back in the beginning because I was, she sounded political to me. Mm-hmm. But over the past 2 years that I've been watching her, she has surely come out and made a good stand.
I'll say this. I got to know Martha when she and I both started campaigning in those first years, and did not know her before then. Mm-hmm. She and I have become pretty good friends, and part of it is our approach and our philosophy on how we handle the job is very similar, and that is it ultimately comes down to the people you represent, and you can't lose focus of that. You have to keep that in the forefront. And some leaders, some politicians forget about that. They get kind of caught up in the political turmoil. They get caught up into some of the little fights between other entities and special interests, and they lose sight on what's most important, and that's the people you represent.
Well, she's been doing a great job. She is very accessible.
She is.
And she is now the chairperson for the military's subcommittee of
I forget the title on it, but I think it's dealing with something to do with bases, I believe.
Right, with the bases and funding and stuff like that, and investigations. And she's been very forthright with coming on and talking to us about it, and she's just been really good. Anyway, this isn't about Martha Roby. I just wanted to say that I mentioned Congress running before. Senator Shelby. Well, I'll be honest with you, love him dearly, nice guy, but I'm all about term limits. And my next question to you will be term limits. How do you feel about that?
You and I've had this conversation many times over the years. I've never been opposed to the term limits. When I was on the city council, I served 2 terms, and I thought that was enough. I thought 2 terms was plenty. And it's not that I didn't enjoy serving, I did. It's just that I think that other people need the opportunity to serve. That other people bring different talents to the job. And there's two significant different ways of looking at term limits. The one is the one we're talking about, that 2 or 3 terms, whatever you choose it to be, hopefully limits the potential for acting in bad faith. It limits the potential for special interests touching too hard into one person or to a group of people. The other way of looking at it is that when you do get those good leaders in place that do the good things and do the good job, you hate losing them, and you get that valued experience that they have that you lose if you play it that way. So there's two ways of looking at it. Both are valid. Both are good faith ways of approaching it. But I've never been opposed to it. I don't think it's likely that it will happen in the near future on both state or federal level to any degree. I just don't think there's enough support for it among elected officials.
Well, I'll still advocate the term limits because my feeling is right now there's too many people in office, especially on the federal level, that have made it a career business and not the concerns of the constituents. They have not, I don't mind them going in for 8 years and then coming out for a term and then getting reelected, back in. I'm not saying once, you put your 8 years in, mm-hmm. It's over. I think that presidency's like that. I believe once you're a president, you can't be a president again or something.
2 terms, right?
Right, but you can be the vice president.
Well, and I remember, as far as the amendment goes, I've got it in my coat pocket over there. It is 2 terms for the president. I don't think it prevents that person from running for other office. However, it's unlikely that.
Yeah, but I've heard of them, they can run for vice president. And
I don't, going on memory, and I haven't read that amendment in quite some time, but going on memory, I don't think that's untrue. I think that's possible.
and they can be president again.
I don't think it's likely.
But I mean, if the president that they're vice president under dies in office, they can be president again.
I don't think it's likely for a lot of reasons. One, as you know, these presidents, after they come out of office and they get on the speaking circuit, they're making more money speaking on that circuit than people can possibly imagine. So,
this question's from Mark Christensen.
well, I'm not Mark.
No, I'm saying it for Mark. What do you think about our new pope?
You know, I'm actually inspired by Francis I. I think that he brings an approach that is needed, not just to Catholicism, but also to religion in general.
Very humble.
And that's what I like about him.
Yeah, security is going nuts with.
I've noticed he's waving out open windows a good bit, and but that speaks to the man. He's been of the people for so long, his entire life, that I don't think you can change that. That's in him.
Right.
That's who he is. And I think that's one reason why God saw fit for him to be Pope. So.
Wow, I'm telling you, he's been a very big inspiration worldwide, and in just a short amount of time. Tomorrow is his inauguration or coronation, whatever they call it. And but we did enjoy having Mark on here talking about that, and he was excited. You know, you just see that the adrenaline was pumping, the gears are running in his head about the possibilities coming up in the Catholic religion, and but there's, you know, you're not here as a Catholic. We know where you go to church, but the Pope is very political as well as spiritual entity in the world, and it's important to have somebody up there that's not really radical. Boy, I don't want to even think about that. We got enough of that. Mike, if you don't mind, we're going to take a quick commercial break.
Sure.
We're going to come back. We're going to dive right into the state. Here locally, we've talked about the peripheral, and now it's time to get down and get dirty, as they say.
Okay.
Because a lot of stuff, there's a lot of good happening in the state.
Correct.
But there's a lot of resistance, it seems like, at different levels now. And I'm seeing the state and the national having some kind of reflection here on the local level. And I mean that by, you know, the cooperation that's the Senate's not being nice to y'all.
That's a whole different discussion, but yeah.
They're not being nice at all. I mean, I'm going to call my buddy Senator Hawley up and say, "Hey, dude, what's going on?"
Now I'll say this: Jimmy Hawley, and you know, Senator Hawley and I are very close friends, and I have the greatest respect for him. He's actually a breath of fresh air. He still has that.
He always is.
Yeah, I mean he is, and that's one reason he and I get along so well. We talk frequently, and I know you're fixing to get to a commercial,
Right.
but I do want to say he's very good about representing the people from home. He keeps that in mind, and to be in office as long as he has, and still be focused on that is amazing, and that speaks volumes of the man.
He's a very sincere individual,
He is.
and he loves what he does, and he loves the people he serves, and we just need to get him a big switch to take up there with him and start.
I'll tell you, he has his own form of a big switch, and that we can talk about that in a little while.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. You know what your job is when you're sitting there when Teresa's not here, right? You get to say, keep it real.
Keep it real.
Keep God in it. We love you all. God bless you. We'll be back with more right after these messages.